Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for everybody who's also keep coming in. We're just getting started. Um, so we are doing an Autoboost 101 webinar, our first 101 webinar. And I'll just give kind of a sentence before we dive right into this. As this is a 101, we both want to keep this, very kind of basic level in order to help people understand exactly what this does and how do you use it as a beginner. But as the webinar will progress, we'll go into more advanced stuff. So we will try to make this suitable for each kind of user. We have some pretty cool, complex or advanced stuff coming up ahead. Okay. But we'll start with the basics. So first of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Shaul. I am one of the founders and the operation manager today at Boost. Boost is both a platinum partner and an advanced delivery partner. That means that we do implementation, configuration, everything that some of you may know regarding the Monday system. And among other things, we also build apps. So we have our Gmail integration that takes emails and turns them into Monday items, which is pretty cool. We've got DashBoost that allows you to create dashboards that you couldn't natively in Monday. And of course, we have what we came here to talk about today, my favorite, Autoboost, which allows you to use mirrors, formulas, and sub-items in automations among other things. So what Autoboost does is allows you to perform automations that you couldn't any other way in Monday. Usually when people ask us, so what does it do? What are we supposed to do with it? They ask us to which use case does this fit? And our answer that it fits everything. And this is because when you talk about automation and what you can do with data and items and columns on your board, it's not confined within a use case. It doesn't matter if you do marketing or construction or retail or anything else. You want to be able to do something with your data, something on your board. So it is not really about a use case. It's about the features that we allow. And I'll just kind of quickly glance over it. We'll go deeper into each one of those later on. But we allow to both use triggers that you couldn't in Monday, to take values that you couldn't in Monday and put them into columns that you couldn't in Monday. So if we look at this triangle of trigger, value, and destination column, we try to help and do it more customizable for the user in each one of those intersections. So we allow to use formula as a trigger. We take those values from formula columns and put them into native columns. We do stuff with mirror. We both know how to put values in mirrors and use them in native Monday, and just a bunch of cool stuff. Some of you may already know them, but you're more than welcome to have a look at yourself. So let's get practical. This is what we came here to do. Let's start with the basic stuff. So Autoboost can be configured both from the Monday automation tool. And what does this mean? Let me show you, sorry. So when you go in a Monday, you can go into the automation center and you can do create automation. From here, you can choose your trigger, right? Whatever Monday allows you to use as a trigger. So for instance, when status changes to something, this will be our trigger. Then we can also put a condition, right? And only if something. And in the end of it, we have then do this. From here, you can access Autoboost. Okay, let's look at those. You can duplicate items without the copy that we know some of you really wanted this feature, but like the basic stuff is to take a value from a column and set it into a different column on the board. So let's use this because this is a very valuable explanation. You click on this then goes through the authentication of the app and it will open the recipe later. So we can approach Autoboost from that direction to use the automation tool that Monday gives us. We'll give it a second. And what we need to understand about Autoboost that we talk about formula in a bunch of different places, okay? One of those first places would be we use apply a formula and set a result into column. So we have our trigger here, and here we have the value, right? In our triangle, this is the value. We click on it here, and then we get this message, right? This pop-up which looks like you want to do a notification or something. But from here, we can choose which value do we want to place in the destination column. When we open this, we can even use, for instance, mirror columns that you couldn't in other ways, right? If I do hours charge, I can show you the board for a second. Hours charge is a mirror column connected to those tasks, by the way, from a few different boards, which we also allowed. So we can take the mirror column, right? Can do that. And we can place it in a destination column. For instance, hours acquired, which doesn't make too much sense, but you get the idea. Now, not only that we can do like choose a value in this way, we can also perform actual formulas here. So for instance, I can use an if sentence, right? If hours charged is above a number, right? So if this is bigger than something, right? Then return a value or return a different value. Okay, so we can use this. And you have our syntax about like all of the options that you have right in our website, in our how to use Autoboost. But this is also a place where you can use our syntax and put it here. What is cool about this method is that you can do something from Autoboost. So you take a number and you put it in this column, and then you can perform another Autoboost action, right? And after that, duplicate the item. Or after that, take a formula and change the item name. This is one way to approach Autoboost and one way to get to it. Don't worry, we'll elaborate on all of those later on. And another way that you can do, and what we actually urge you to do because we think it's much more powerful, is you can go into the integrate section. You can search for Autoboost. And here you have our recipe page. And our recipe page allows you to do a lot more, and it offers much, much more options than what you could have done in the Monday native tool. This is where if you remember, we had to choose when something that Monday allows you to do, right? When status changes to something. But here, we're not limited by this. So this means that we can do when formula column changes, for instance, which you couldn't in Monday, or when a mirror column changes, or when other stuff happens that Monday wouldn't let you. Okay, so when you come in here, you actually get much, much more options. For instance, I don't know, every time period, take a value from a formula column on the board and put it in every one of those items on this board. Many, many other options that we only allow through here. Okay, so this was our first step. Okay, so to understand that we can configure this from the Monday automation tool, but from the recipe page as well. We've talked about this triangle, right? We usually, even in our recipes, follow this structure of trigger, formula, and destination. Okay, if we have a look here, sorry, let's go back into that page. We can see that we do something like when trigger, right? When column changes, so when the trigger occurs, and then get the calculated value of a formula column, the value, set the result into destination column. Most of those use exactly this kind of method of thinking. So if you have this structure in your mind, and when you come to this page having this in mind, you can really work out to figure out exactly what you want to do. What's my trigger? When an item is created, okay, I can see this here. What do I want to do? I want to take a column from the board. Cool, I'll use this, click on the formula, choose one of the columns, and put it in the destination column. Another thing that I want to point out here, we have two different syntax of, or I won't say it's not that complicated. We have two different ways in which we use formula. One is one I've shown before. So when column changes, apply formula, which opens this text box, right? In the board, in the recipe, sorry, and then you can choose your values. And another thing we have, for instance, this, get the calculated value of formula. So apply formula means what I've shown before, and get the calculated value of formula is what I'm about to show now. When you click on one of those, the value that you can place is actually something you can take from the formula columns that you have in your board, those native Monday formula, right? So when something happens, get the calculated value of, and then you'll have this message box opening up. And under here, you'll have a selection between the formula columns that is actually on the board. So you can see under over it's a formula, and left hours it's a formula. If I go here, I have a formula here. If hours acquired is smaller than hours charged, we're over. If not, we're under. And the left hours, which is a minus of hours charged minus from the acquired hours. So two ways of using formulas. One to do it by ourselves, and one to take actual formula columns from this board. Again, not something you can find anywhere on Monday. Okay? Why do we, so both methods have kind of different pluses and minuses to them. One I've shown before, you can do, if you use the native Monday tool, you can use their conditions, right? You can put those ifs, you can choose your trigger from there. And then not only you can use Autoboost, you can do an Autoboost action and then another Autoboost action and then send an email, right? You can keep using those automations. From here, when we use our recipe page, we have a bunch of different other options. And we also allow to take formula columns from the board. Why do we like the formula columns from the board? Because we can do all the testing and all the stuff that we want to see. We can do it here. We can see that it works and then just place it into Autoboost. So it saves us a bit of time in the configuration part. Okay. So this was the formula can be embedded in the recipe or come from a formula column. We've touched on this. And we also have a special sub-item syntax for Autoboost. I want to say that I think that the best way to approach it will be to go to how to use Autoboost and check out our syntax. But what usually is the case is that you want to be able to see different columns in the sub items. And then the way we allow you to use those in, I think we have something here in Autoboost is, let me check for something in here. All right. So we have something like this. When sub-item is created and then we want to do something, and then this is how we understand something about the conditions of the sub-item, okay? Our syntax says that if you want to use information from sub-items, all you need to do is this. So sub-items dot, and then the column ID, okay? So if I'll go back here, sorry, let's close this. If I'll go back here, you want to make sure you're able to see those IDs. You can find them here. Okay, so you can do something like if sub-item dot this column ID is something, then do something, and then do some conditions on the sub-item level as well. If you're unable to see those column ID when you click on the three dots of a sub-item, what you want to do is you want to go to your Monday Labs and you want to have your developer mode on. As you can see, this will allow you to see column IDs. And this is how you'll be able to perform those kind of cool stuff in your sub-item level. So if the sub-item status is PM, I want you to do something. If it's dev, I want you to do something. Or if not, I want you to do something else.
John, can I say something about this?
Of course.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Boaz. I think most of you know me from some board meetings, so nice to see you all. Basically, the main usage of the sub-item dot something is exactly the same as clicking on an item column within this dialog. Shaul, can you open it just real quick? So here, if you want to select a column from the item, you just scroll down in the fields from the item, but then you don't have the sub-items here. You don't have any column from the sub-item. So this is our hack of actually accessing those and use them. That's it.
Good point. Moving on. New features. All right. Some cool ones. Our first one, I think the most exciting one, is the formula column as a trigger. So let's go right here. Formula column is a trigger. So we want to do something when the value of a formula column changes. Okay? Our previous way of doing this, even with Autoboost, would be to do something like this. When time changes, get the calculated value of a formula and put it in the destination column. But then it's only when the time changes, right? This is our only trigger. We needed another recipe for when velocity changes, also take the formula column and put those in the destination column. And this would go on and on and on and on, right? We have a simple 8th grade kind of velocity and time equal distance here. So it only involves 2 columns. But what if it's a really big formula, right? Then we need to go and identify each one of those variables within the formula and build a recipe for this to be the trigger. We've built a feature specifically for that. It's in beta because we're still testing it, but we thought it would be like we can already share it with you guys. So when a formula column changes, and again, it will allow you to choose the formula columns from the board as the trigger. So when the formula column changes, take this value and put it in a destination column. When you click on this, we do the work for you. We configure this for each one of those variables in it, and as you'll be able to see, so it's not a 7, it's 10 hours, and we have this number change. We can see the trigger has been triggered, right? Even if it will take a minute because you know it is, but we know that it popped, right? And as we can see, it takes the formula and it puts it here. And then even if I change the velocity and I'll do something like this, we can see that it's triggering. So we've built a mechanism that allows us to listen to each one of those cells within this formula. And as we can see, put it in here. All right. And as you understand, the value of this grows when you have more and more complicated formulas. All right. We have a few kind of do's and don'ts and what we can and cannot support, and we'll share it with you later on. But we keep on supporting more and more options in this field. Okay. But for now, like for the most of use cases, it covers it and it works pretty cool. Moving on. Date min, date max, a new feature as well. So we have a lot of use cases, and we saw it from a lot of clients of ours, that sometimes for one item, they have a lot of date columns, right? It can range in a bunch of numbers. They have a lot of date columns, and then they want a column that only tells them, you know what, give me the max date, like what's the latest of all of those dates, and for min as well, what's the earliest of all of those dates. We've incorporated those right into our specific syntax. So I'll show exactly how this works. So for instance, when, sorry, this is not the one I wanted to, not the timeline, right? When calculate max date changes, right? Something on the board, a trigger changes, apply a formula. And in the formula, we do this. We write date underscore max, all caps. And then we just choose all of those date columns that we want to address and separate them by a comma, right? Super simple. We close this, and then we say, where do we want to put it? And as we can see, right, we have a bunch of different dates in here. I'll ask it to calculate the max date. And as we can see, it runs. It will take a moment, but then eventually it will choose, like, it will understand what is the latest. And as we can see, puts it here. Okay. Another cool thing, timelines. I guess most of you already know it, but if you don't, we have this syntax of timeline, all caps, from when to when. You just choose your date columns in here. Okay. And then when you do, we did the, let's see where we don't have it for here, an example. So if I change the end date to April 25th, the beginning is April 2nd, that's our trigger. It will generate a timeline from this to this. Okay, this is not a new one, but we know not everybody knows it. The new one is the max date and min date, that you just put the syntax and choose those date columns, and then we can return the max date. Then what you can do is you can use this to trigger automations, to do whatever you want, right? Because you want to do something on a specific date and you want to choose the latest or the earliest.
So one little thing that important to mention is that it supports both date min and date max. I mean, it supports both date columns and timelines, and a mixture of both of them as well. So you can use any kind of column that you need.
Super cool. All right, my favorite, all mirror statuses or all sub-item statuses. Again, something that came up from our partners. We have a partner program in which people implement Autoboost for other customers. And this came as a request from a bunch of them to incorporate into Autoboost. And it works like this. So we have a use case in which we have an item that is connected, let's say a project that is connected to a bunch of tasks on different boards, right? And we mirror those statuses here. But then we want to do something like when all of those tasks has been completed, when everything is done, I want to do something, right? Or when everything is working on it, or when everything is stuck. So when all of those achieve the same status, we want to do something. And for this, we've developed this syntax. So when a mirror column changes, right? Another thing that you can only do with Autoboost, when a mirror column changes, apply a formula, and this formula will look like this. If all mirror statuses, this is a new syntax, of the mirror column are done, I want you to return done. And if not, I want you to pass. We'll get to pass afterwards. So if all the mirror statuses have the same status of this, I want you to return something. And then I want you to put it in a column that is called mirror done. So we can see that, okay, we have two tasks here that are working on it. If I'll take one and I'll change it to done, we can see triggering, but nothing happens. And nothing happens because we still have a task that isn't done. But if I'll go to the latest task and I'll do this one is done, we can see that the automation is running. It will go ahead, figure out that everything matched the value that we wanted. Can take a moment, and then it returns done here. So it checks that everything is cool here, puts it here, super strong, allows you to kind of really get that overview sense that you want and trigger an automation that says, oh, look, all of those tasks that you wanted to see are now done. So you can have a board in which you choose what you want to know and what you want to track, and you want to see if everything meets a certain criteria, you can do it like this. Okay? I really like it. I think it's super, super powerful. And another one will be the same thing with sub items. Okay? You do this, you know how to do it when you have a status column or a date column. You can do show summary on parent item, right? And for the status column, this is what creates this. And I want to say, you know what? When all of those are done, change this sub item status to done. Okay? Now, I know that in some of those cases, Monday can already cover, but I think that what we have is much, much more powerful, and I'll try to understand why. And I'll try to explain why. Because first of all, let me show you the syntax. So if all sub-item statuses of this summary column are done, return something. If not, return pass. This will allow you to you can build a full system here, right? You can do switches and ifs and everything that you want. So you can build one automation to say, you know what, if they're all working on it, return working on it. If they're all done, return done. Okay? And you don't even have to place it in a status column, like the sub-item done column. You can say something like, when all of those are done, I want you to turn a number, 100, right? And put it in a number column. So we're not confined only to the status column. Something, again, to me, super powerful. We see a lot of usage in this. So both of those, to me, I think one of the more nicest stuff that we have here. Moving on, sync updates between connected items. I'll try to run through it. I think you'll understand the purpose of this. So we have a campaign board, sorry, a campaign item that is connected to a bunch of tasks in a number of boards. You can see that it's connected to, sorry, more than one board. There we go. Now imagine I have freelancers working for me on a task board on the low level, and I have here the campaign item for management. So in here, I want to keep it just for me. I don't have any guests here, but I have task board with guests, and I want to communicate with them. But I want all of those communications to be drawn upwards to the controlling item. And both, I want to communicate with them from one place. So if I'll do here, let me just show you the automation. We've got an automation. When an update is created, copy it to all item in connected column. It will show connected column in the recipe page. So when an update is created, copy it to all items in connected hot column. We chose tasks in here, and we can do this on this campaign. I can write webinar, and I'll update. We will see that something is happening. We can see that it will go away. It will search for all of those tasks that are connected to this. And if I'll go to, I don't know where it is, but let's have a look right here, for instance. This is this, sorry, not the one. I think it was item 2, webinar. All right. We've tested it so you can see it. All of those are in here. Just now, webinar created by me. So allows me to take those updates and put those into different items, and it will work the other way around as well. Okay, so if I'll say something on item 3, and I'll say test. So in this use case, I'm the freelancer working on the test board and I want to communicate upwards. I do test here on item 3 that is connected to Project Alpha. Okay, and Project Alpha should be in here. And I'll be able to see that it goes away all the way up here. Okay, gamma somewhere, right? I don't remember because we did a lot of tests, but it comes up and shows with the connected items. Okay. As we can see, something really cool that allows you to kind of have multiple syncs between different boards and kind of allows you to kind of go away above permissioning issues, because you can take those updates into columns only for guests and stuff like that. Pass and empty. Another syntax we've just recently added to the core functionality. A lot of the times we saw that we encounter errors for some of those places where we wanted to change something, but we had to kind of put back empty values in stuff where the system, if you put an empty value in a date column, for instance, you would get an error notification. And we saw that it kind of messes workflows and it doesn't really work like we wanted. So we've developed the following. In our specific syntax, we can do this. When we apply our formulas, for instance, what we have here is if the length of the item date is 0, that means that if the item date is empty, you can check if something is empty by the length of the stuff it's 0, then pass. So whatever pass means, whatever value that you have in there, keep it. Don't do anything about it. All right. But then if you want to say something like if something meets a condition in a place that already has a value, I want to empty this cell, then you use empty, right? So we have pass and empty. So in our use case, we have something like if we don't have a date there, forget what I said. But then if we do, check the item status. If it's pushed by 10 days, I want you to add 10 days to this date column. If it's 30, add 30. And if it's empty, I want you to empty the cell that you have there. Okay, so we can see an example of this. So for instance, task 1, I want to say push by 10 days. Okay, so we see the trigger. Again, it can take a second, but it will understand that we have a date value in here, and it pushes the date by 10 days. Now, if I have nothing here, all right, and I say push by 10, it will just say, it's empty. We don't have anything there. So I'm ignoring it. I'm passing the same value. Okay. And if I have a value and I want to empty it, I can do empty date. Okay. Here we only kind of went and looked at the status, but you can incorporate those into different syntaxes, into different workflow, right? If something is happening, I want you to empty this cell because I need it for later use or whatever. And if a condition is met, so do something else. So we allow pass and empty in all of our use cases now. Moving on, let's go back to our slideshow. Boaz and Eli, anything you want to add on this part? I can see you.
Just that, it hurt me that the update didn't work, but it did. It just took a second. So
They know how it
They
is.
know, yeah.
All right, do's and don'ts. The do's. Okay. Okay, a cool one. So set two recipes to cast the mirror column value. What do we mean and how do we get there? So you want to take a value of something on the board, usually the mirror column, and you want to place it in a native column when this mirror column changes. Okay, so you go away and you look for what you need. So when a mirror column changes, apply a formula. In the formula, you take the mirror value and you place it into column, and then you add more items into that connection. Now it looks like the mirror column is changing, right? Let's imagine we have a number there, right? I have a 5, and then I connect another item. Now I have a 10. So the mirror column of this number changed, but this wasn't the trigger that changed. The trigger that changed was the addition of another item being connected. So when you want to make sure you circle this entire flow, entire use case, just set up two recipes. One, which you've already probably did. So when a mirror column changes, take this value and put it somewhere. But then add another recipe. When a column changes, take the same value and put it in the same column. But then this column now do the connect boards column. So now you address both use cases when the mirror column changes and when the connect board column changes. So just take the same value and put it in the same place. This will allow you to kind of draw a full circle around everything that you want. This was our first do. Second do, use an if statement to flag specific sub items. Super important. In some use cases, we see that people want to do something like this. When something changes on the item level, on the parent level, I want you to apply something to the sub item levels. Okay, if I change a date, a start date, I want to change it on the item level. I want everything to be addressed by this on the sub item level. Okay, but then in some of those use cases, you don't want to apply this to all of your sub items. You only want to put those in some of your sub items. So this is how you can do this. When a column changes, so something happens, you see the trigger date on the parent item changes, then in the formula, you check a condition, okay? So for instance, if the sub item name is marketing, then I want you to take this value. If not, so if it's not the marketing sub item, don't do anything. And it's not only the name that you can check, right? You can check every column by just putting the if sub item dot sub item column ID is something, then take a value and put it there. If not, don't. This will allow you to control what you do and don't within the fact that we run on all of those sub items. So you apply a condition, and then only when it's met, you do this. Another do. Okay, we've touched on this earlier, but now we'll address it completely. Check if a column is empty or not by using len. So a lot of the time, people want to understand if they have something, and if not, they want to do something else. So we allow this. I showed this before. I think we can run on this. When trigger happens, then let's see if we have this. Then, if it's a bit small, if the len of this cell is something, do something. If not, do something else. Okay, so just check if something is empty by the usage of this len syntax. Don't mute the board. I know it's an annoying one, but it's an important one. Why don't mute the board? We know that in a lot of those places, and I think it's really more of a past thing that like we kind of carry on with us. Autoboost sends a lot of notification errors. We know it. We try to like go away and fix it in each update that we do. But people like they tell us it notifies me a lot. I don't want it. I don't need it. I just want to mute it. Now, what does this mean to us? The notification is something that we use to communicate with you. And we communicate with you in really important sections. For instance, when something didn't work. If you don't have this notification, just stuff doesn't happen that you don't know of it, right? You expect a value to be somewhere, but it isn't there and you have no idea why. If we have this notification, we can tell you, oh, something didn't happen, and we'll try to explain why. So the first one will be errors. We need it for the errors. The second one will be that this is where we tell you you're about to run out of operations. Okay, you've bought a plan, you only have a limited number of operation, And we try to give like heads up, you've reached 80%, you're about to finish your operations. And then when you've finished your operations, if you don't have it, again, nothing works on your board. You don't know it. We don't have a way to tell you. So you're bored. We need this to communicate with you. Second one, don't use arithmetic operators in formulas, what you would call free operators or any one of those. Remember that we can take formula columns values from like actually choosing the formula column in our recipes and put them into native columns. This has limitations. One of those limitations is we don't support those kinds of factors. So if you want to minus your discounts from your total revenue, we need this to be like this. Just as like the basic core functionalities of how operators works within a formula, like the basic is multiply, do the multiplication by commas and stuff like that, and then the minus again. This will work all across Autoboost. If you use this, this will work. With any column, anything that you want, this will work, this won't. Like we see a lot of those people come to us, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You said you support formula, we go in. Somewhere they didn't quite pay attention, they did minus like this or divided like this. Okay? Don't use mirror of formula columns. That's a big one. Okay, let's not see this for now. What does this mean? A lot of the time people say, hey, listen, you said you can take mirror columns and put them into native columns and it doesn't work. We go in and we see that those mirrors are actually reflecting or mirroring results of formula columns from other boards, so the formula columns themselves. But we don't support it. It's super complicated. It's not really doable for now. But we have a way to work around it, and this is the solution we always address. We say something like this. So we have two boards, right? We have the origin board in which the formula is being performed, and then we have the cast board where we take this value and we cast it to. So if we look at the origin board, we want to use this board and use Autoboost there to take this value from the formula column and just put it in a native column, right? We've shown this a bunch of times here. So on the origin board, you make sure you extract your result of the formula into a native column. And then on your casting board, you can just cast this value and you go around this problem, okay? So you can use any one of those recipes for us to take formula values and put them into native columns. So both of those, but we have a lot more. So when item is created, extract this and put it here, or I don't know, when something else happened, do it. And then you've got this value, which is now native. Then you can go away to your casting board and say, when mirror column changes, this one, take its value and put it here, right? So this is how you solve this. Frequently asked questions. All right. Our first one. Why is my mirror column recipe not working? I only see contact app developer error message. Okay, so this can happen in multiple use cases. First of them would be that Autoboost isn't enabled on your workspace. When the admin first adds Autoboost to the account, it asks him if it wants to be in a specific workspace or in all of those. Sometimes they choose a specific workspace or they didn't pay attention or whatever. And then you try to do something in a different workspace, or I don't know, take a mirror from a board that isn't in this workspace or whatever. You want to go to your app management and make sure that all of those workspaces are enabled. Only admins can do it, but it's important. Otherwise, your mirror recipes won't work. Second option, that it's not working because you may not be the owner of one of the connected boards. And I'll explain. I'll explain more thoroughly, but you need to understand that what we do is Autoboost looks at the user like as the one performing those actions, okay? And we need to build another automation on that board that is connected in order to apply this. Now, if you don't have permissions to do this on this other board, this won't work, okay? It kind of really depends on the permission setup in your account, but sometimes this is the thing. Sometimes mirror are not working because you are not, the system doesn't allow you to perform action on this board you're trying to mirroring from. So two very important stuff to check in this specific use case.
I will say another thing about this. We do have a third option, which is actually something went wrong, and you should actually contact us.
Of course.
Some weird stuff can happen, and we'll be able to assist.
Of course. All right. How do I track my ops usage during the month? We have a cool video here. You go to the app page, you search for Autoboost. You go to settings, and you will have a bar showing the usage of your ops for this month. Again, only admins can see this. Important. Okay? Moving on. What is counted as an action? Good question. So usually we try to look at this every time that our servers are being called. So every time we're being triggered, this will count as one action. But sometimes this one action needs to apply results to multiple locations. In those use cases, each location we've inputted a value will be counted as an operation. So for instance, if we now do something on the sub-item level, so when something happened, do something on sub-items, each one of those sub-item changes is applied as an operation. If you do every time period, which is really cool, and I really urge you to look at it because I think it's super powerful. When you look at the Monday options for every time period, it's super limited. Like it's only about notifications and other stuff I don't remember. In our every time period, you can really like every day, for instance, and then use our syntax, check if a condition has been met, and if so, change a status, for instance, and then on the status do send an email or notify someone. And then you can do, and then the workflow would be that every day the board checks itself and something happened, and if something did happen, it does something. So it's super powerful in my opinion. And I've applied it like in really powerful use cases. But then in those use cases, each one of those items that we check the condition about, we need to also do an operation there. So it will also be counted as an operation. Third, when is my plan reset? Super simple. If you're on a free plan, first of each month. If you're on a pay plan, on the date you purchase. So if I purchase this on the 17th, it resets on the 17th. Why won't options load in mirror, sub-items, or formula recipes? Something that we get asked a lot. Sometimes we click on the, for instance, when something happens, get the calculated value of formula column, and it shows failed to load options, even though we know that on the board we have a formula column. Okay, usually we see this error when someone is being run out of operations. Okay, like especially if it used to work for you and now it doesn't, it says you're out of operations and now the system can't go and do it. If you see an empty value, even though you know there is something there, so not failed, but empty, this usually has something to do with permissions. Okay, so something doesn't allow you to see those. This is why we return empty. Usually when something doesn't allow us to see something, it has something to do with permissions. In those use cases, we urge you to try to contact us.
On the fail to load options use case, you are also supposed to get a notification from the system saying that you have reached the 100% limit. But then if your board is muted, you are very confused. And this is why you don't mute the board.
And then
Right.
you can check the tracker to see
Yes,
if you ran out of automation.
true. We cannot control the fail to load options text, obviously. If we could, we would.
Right, how it all comes together. Okay, good one. I connected an additional board, but my when mirror column changes recipe isn't working. Why? Good question. Okay, so when you connect an additional board, after we've done the recipe, okay, so imagine you have a connected boards column and you're connected to two boards and you are mirroring something. Then you do when mirror column changes, take this value and put it somewhere. And then you go to that connect board and you add an additional board or additional boards, right? Our recipe like doesn't know it at this point. Okay, we've only created the system that we need based on the connections that were there when we configured the recipe. So in order to make sure that this works, if you add a new board, not a new item, but a new board to that connect column, right? Then you go to the automation, you find that recipes, you edit it, and you click update. This update on our end will go away and recreate the system, and it will now work. All right. Any questions from the audience? I don't really know how this works, so
We have the Q&A.
Dana, Ila.
So yeah, we have several questions from the audience, the Q&A.
Mhm.
So does function being all caps really affect anything? So no, you can totally use lowercase and it would still work.
But please don't, because it hurts my eyes when people do that. But it will work.
I think it's better to stick to caps. Like I
Yeah.
really do. I think that in some cases, like stick to caps.
Does each update count as one Autoboost action? So basically, every time an Autoboost recipe triggers, you'll be able to see it in the run history of the recipe. It will cost one operation. Maybe if you're saying that there are a few connected items, are those counted as one per each? The answer is no. But as Shaul said before, on the sub items, if you are applying a result to multiple sub items, it will count as one for each sub item. Same for every time period recipes. Yeah. Why do some Autoboost recipes create a webhook integration? Okay, so this is a good question, and sometimes we have a lot of users that are seeing those webhooks lying around at the boards and they have no idea what they're doing over there. So I'll take the simple when formula column changes that Shaul showed in the beginning with hours and mileage. So each one of those columns was added with a webhook. So we had added the main recipe, which is the main formula column changes, and then we are in the background had to create two webhooks for two of those columns to basically say, hey, when something happens, let me know so I'll be able to trigger the recipe. All right. You can see a webhook as like a subscription to ask someone to let you know that something happened. So the same goes for when mirror column changes for all of those connected boards. If you have 3 connected boards and each one of those have a status column and you want to say when one of those status column changes, we will create a webhook in every one of those boards. This is why sometimes we have permission issues because we actually have to create something in the other board. And if it's not owned by you, then we will not be able to do that. I hope that answers.
And we have another question from Reut. She asked if there's an option in Monday to search for all the muted boards at once. I don't know any.
I don't know either.
Don't think so. Maybe you can get that from the API playground, I think. Maybe I'll do some, maybe I'll check it out. Might be nice. I'll get back to you on that.
And you can go and ask Monday also.
Yeah, that's definitely a Monday thing, but yeah.
And I saw also something, a request from someone. Let me see if I can re-find it.
Dieter wrote something.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it?
Is there something on the table like when all items in this group has status X, then change the status of these items in this group to this? Interesting. All right, so actually anything that has to do with groups is something that we haven't really, we did think about it a lot, but it's kind of sophisticated and hard to implement, but maybe we can take this and think about it and see if we can do that.
If you guys think it's a valid feature, let us know.
Yeah.
We can absolutely work on it. We do have something. Let me try to search for it for a second. I don't know if you guys know it, but we have We have something to do with groups. Maybe it can hit the spot. Yeah, not exactly, but we can do something like when column changes on an item, operate a number column for all items in a group, and then take this result and put it on an item. So we had a use case in which we had, like, imagine an item that represent a group within the same board, and someone wanted to know, like, what is the aggregated number of something or the max number of something in this group, and then put it in a column in a specific item. So not exactly what you were aiming for, but maybe this can help you. And anyway, we'll have a look at what you said and we'll try to think if it's something we can do. Any other questions? Good, bad, thanks. All right. I don't see anything else. All right. So as you can see, you can contact us. You can check out the how to use page. It's a good one. You can talk to us any way that you like. You can, like, take a picture of this QR and book a call with us. We'll be happy to discuss and help and everything that you want. And we would love to hear more of those ideas. Like, this is how we build those kind of tools. So let us know if there's anything else you would want. We'd love to hear. And you will get an email summarizing this with the recording and everything that you want. And we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know if you want any other materials from us, any other thing that we can help and support with. We are here. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.